Welcome to the show. My name is Charlton with Big C. This is Charlton and Big C Sports, coming to you worldwide on the Big C Sports Network, on the #1 network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the #1 sports show in the universe, according to Big C and them good old boys down south. I want to say bienvenidos to all of our listeners in Latin America, also across the pond in London, England, as well as Paris, France. Of course, you good old boys in Canada. We love you in Africa, the Big C tribe. But there's no one we love more than the good old boys down south in the land of the free and the home of the brave on a beautiful July the 24th, 2019. Grondo Deportes, Big C. How's it going for you good old boys down south?
But Charlton, I was all goodish and excited yesterday when I announced that the Olympics would be in the year in Tokyo, Japan.
Yes.
But then I looked at the calendar. Damn, I got 364 more days I gotta wait.
Just like waiting in line at the bank when you're working with a lot of athletes, you gotta wait 364 days just to get your deposit in. It's all fair in the sports universe. A lot of things happening in the world of baseball. And even talk about basketball, it still finds a way to get back on track. People thinking that you can't interfere with certain people. But nothing trumps football but Trump. That's the only thing that trumps football with the Mueller report. Now some good old boys are being able to pull the screen and see behind the Wizard of Oz and all that good old boy stuff in Washington, D.C. I do want to say today's show is sponsored by your Northern California Cadillac dealers, home of the all-new Cadillac Escalade, the standard of the world. When you go by and test drive yours, tell them Charlton and Big C sent you, as well as a fleet of Cadillac cars. Big C, I was watching a lot of TV earlier in the morning. I got up about 4 o'clock this morning, and just, being out of town, you get up early. You hate to sleep in when you're not in your own bed, but it's nice when you can see that everything that has to do with our election process, it actually trumps what's going on in the world of the sports universe. Big C, your thoughts on the Mueller report?
Well, the Mueller report has been what it is. So many people hate reading. They want to be told.
Yeah.
It's like you'll go to the movie and watch a movie, but you won't read the book. That's the same thing that the Mueller report represented, Charlton. I mean, he answered some questions vaguely. It really didn't get to the crux of anything. And I think the main question that everybody missed during the entire Mueller, speaking in front of the Senate today, Charlton, is that the main question was asked: can the president be charged with the crime once he leaves office? And Mueller said he could be. That's what everybody was getting at. You have to understand, Trump will not be impeached.
No.
Because if Trump gets impeached, then he will be pardoned by Pence. So it defeats the purpose of everything and what Pelosi is trying to do. Everyone is impatient. You have to be patient when you're trying to build a building. It's not going to go up in one day. But they understand, Nancy Pelosi does, that when he leaves office, he can be charged with all the crimes that are in the Mueller report. And that's what the public and the Democrats need to understand. It's not going after him right now because it's futile. He's going to be protected by the vice president if he gets impeached. And he's not going to be impeached by the Senate regardless of what the House does. So what they were laying the foundation for is that once he leaves office, now that he's a private citizen, he can be charged with these crimes.
Well, there's a reason that he thinks he trusts Putin more than his own Central Intelligence Agency, because he may need that Trump Tower they were trying to get that loan for in Russia. Big C, it might come in handy after all. Your thoughts?
Well, he's not going to leave the country. Regardless of where he goes, he's not going to get diplomatic immunity around the world, Charlton, because everybody wants to have their relationship with the United States. So he is going to have to face the piper when his presidency ends.
Well, I know there's a lot of things. I got a little stupid joke. You say butter's good for cooking. You say butter's good for putting on your lips. It's good for skin. It's also good for a lot of things. When you're trying to squeeze out of a situation, Big C, butter's good for that too. Maybe this POTUS will order a lot of that. But still with Pelosi, she spoke about Russian interference, about POTUS and how he can be indicted after he exits from office because of obstruction of justice. And everybody knows this guy he's what he is. And if people like it, that's okay. It seems like, in talking to many women who hear about this, the rich men can get away with anything because oftentimes their wives will marry them for the money, not for the love. And when you've made some companies wealthy, then even women are saying it's okay that he does what he does and lies about it because they really don't care as long as the money's there the whole Trump family is really a stain. I've heard the dirt comes out in the wash. There was a lot of washing machines in Congress today. But POTUS will still deny that you can't believe what you just read, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, the thing is, nobody has read the Mueller report. Even when you look at all the congressmen, they have not read the Mueller report. Everybody has relied on news outlets and excerpts to get their information about this report. That's the problem with society today. Because we have so much technological intervention, Charlie, in societies, everybody's become lazy. This is not 50 years ago in America where you were forced to sit down and read or pay attention intensely to the evening news.
Yeah, I know. When I used to get in trouble, my parents would always make me read, and I thought, well, why I got to read again? I think they knew what they were doing because I got in trouble so much when I was a young boy. See, I could do more reading now. It wouldn't hurt. So obviously, the Mueller report it's a juicy, lots of allegations. But I still think it comes in second place to The Bachelor. When a woman's crying over what 50 guys she's going to marry because she loves all 50 of them, and that has higher ratings than oftentimes the Mueller report and other things, it's just America and what it's come to. But also, what is juicy? This world, I tried some butter on steak. Now, I know it's bad for cholesterol, but I think you're right. It does make the steak taste better when you cook it on the skillet with butter as opposed to some type of grease mix. To your thoughts?
Well, butter is wonderful. Especially after the steak is done, you put some butter on it and let it melt down. It accentuates the flavor of that meat. It is so delectable.
Yeah, well, they do it in a lot of nice restaurants, especially around California. But one thing that I love, no matter whether it's Mueller report or it's about POTUS or any time of year, I want to know your thoughts on some of the quarterback coaches in college football. And everybody wants to know who's going to get drafted where in the NFL. But when I think about some of the quarterback coaches that may not get some of the credit, I think about a guy named Jimbo Fisher. You think about some of his disciples. Jameis Winston, who never met a crab cake that he didn't put butter on. Big C, that make any sense to you? Your thoughts?
Well, crab and lobster is best in raw butter, Charlton. It takes that sweetness to another level.
Yeah, it does take it to another level. Also, you think about Jamarcus Russell, and I know people might say, well, he really wasn't the success that people wanted him to be in the NFL for the Raiders, but he had success in college. E.J. Emanuel, I thought he was amazing. Christian Ponder. And now you look at Kellen Mond at Texas A&M. I know Jimbo got that $75 million. But when you take a step and look back at what he's done, he's actually mentored a lot of great quarterbacks. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, when you look at those first four quarterbacks that you mentioned that learned under Jimbo Fisher, they were all number one draft picks in the NFL.
Yeah.
Kellen Mond was under the radar last year at Texas A&M, but he expects to have a breakout season. Matter of fact, in the Big 12 Media Day, he stood up and said he felt that he was the best quarterback in the country. I like the moxie that he had because you need a quarterback to have confidence regardless of what level that you're playing on. Kevin Mond told everybody he's the quarterback that people have to look after when this season starts because everyone is going to be chasing him.
Let me get your thoughts on what it's going to take for a Texas A&M program. I know you're down south and you still consider them the Westerners because they come out of Texas, but they can recruit the state of Texas. They really only have University of Texas and maybe TCU to compete with. Some of the lesser programs don't have the same opportunity for the top marquee programs. And he can also go back into Florida, and he can recruit many of the top athletes in the state of Florida that he created great relationships with the high school coaches. But with being able to recruit Texas and Florida, why can't Texas A&M win the SEC? Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, you look at the short length of time that they've been in the SEC, they have had some success, both them and Missouri.
Yeah.
But you got a 16-team conference that you have to deal with. They've had some up and downs. They've had some injury issues.
Yeah.
It cost Kevin Sumlin his job there. I mean, they had a Heisman Trophy winner in Johnny Manziel.
Yeah.
Now that, you have Jimbo Fisher in his second full season at Texas A&M, he has stability at quarterback, which any team that expects to win has to have.
Yeah.
They're looking to make inroads into the conference and have a double-digit win season this year, Charlton.
Well, they have everything they need, even more so than Texas, because he can go right back to those high school coaches in Florida and get people to look at Texas A&M. And when you go down to Kyle Field, it's one of the most amazing places, especially the 12th man, the way they stand. I'm going to bring up another coach that had some turbulence behind him, Coach Mike Leach. Now he's at Washington State. Maybe the worst place you can be for D1 college football when he's had the talent that he's had to coach over the years. You think about Cliff Kingsbury, there's Graham Harrell, Luke Falk, and then Gardner Minshew up at Washington State. A grown man mustache, but great stats. But it's just they're so far north to the northwest. Washington get a lot of press because they're in Seattle. But when you're out there in Pullman, that's a tough place for him to go out there and win. But he's been winning in spite of being in one of the smallest media markets in the Pac-12. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, he was in one of the smaller media markets in the Big 12 when he was there. But you think about Mike Leach. He's one of the godfathers of the spread offense. This man is a genius when you look at the quarterbacks that he has created. Cliff Kingsbury, who has taken that tree to the NFL, Charlton, with the Arizona Cardinals.
Yeah.
You talked about, Falk and Minshew, two quarterbacks that he's had at Washington State that he's propelled into the NFL. So he's a quarterback whisperer, Charlton. And in offense, if you can find a quarterback that's salient enough to run his offense, it's going to lead to success.
Yeah, I was talking to an attorney friend just not too long ago, and he had talked about BYU and how they had, Ty Detmer. They had, of course, the great Steve Young, and they've had so many good quarterbacks come out of that system that Lavelle Edwards had put together. And now that Lavelle is not, they have a little bit different. They have different coaches, they have different systems. You don't see the top players coming out of BYU anymore for quarterback, but I think you can get that type of look over at Washington State. I want to go to a guy that I know you like, and maybe not as much since they beat Alabama, but Dabo Swinney. You think about his disciples. Dabo Swinney's had Taj Boyd, Deshaun Watson, which I think is going to be a star in the NFL, Kelly Bryant, who's also a star player, and then Trevor Lawrence, that many people say he's on pace to break all of their records. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, you look at the development of a college program, Charlton, and it's led by the head coach through the quarterback. And you look at the quarterbacks that he has produced there. Taj Boyd held all the records at Clemson as a starter since he was a freshman year. Deshaun Watson elevated that level of productivity, winning getting to 2 national championship games while he was at Clemson.
Yep.
He was replaced by Kelly Bryant. Bryant went on to get them into the playoffs prior to transferring to North Carolina. Now they have Trevor Lawrence. As a true freshman, they won a championship with him, Charlton, and the sky's the limit for that program. So when you look at young quarterbacks looking at a place to find home in college football, you've talked about 3 of the gurus, Charlton, that can get them to the next level.
Well, Clemson right now, if they can win another championship, I doubt if they're going to do it because they have the target on their chest, even though they're good. But I still think it's going to come from someone new. But if they can win another championship, then he may replace, obviously, your friend as the best coach in college football. But it's year by year. People thought it was Urban Meyer, and then they think whoever gets the most money. But, your guy down at Alabama, Saban gets more money than anybody and has more wins than anybody. But another coach that I like, but it's mostly known as a running school back in the days of Barry Switzer, even though Barry Switzer had recruited Troy Aikman before he was injured in a game against Miami and brought in Jamel Holloway out of California, and he helped Oklahoma win a national championship. But you think about Lincoln Riley and the disciples that he's had. You think about none other than Baker Mayfield, who came out of Texas Tech. Then there's Kyler Murray, who was 40-1 in high school at Allen High School in Texas, only lost 2 games as a freshman starter at Oklahoma. That was Texas and Oklahoma and Alabama in the playoffs. And then, if it works out this year, he'll get a chance to have a guy who's already won a national championship in Alabama transfer and Jalen Hurts. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, if he can turn Jalen Hurts around from the type of quarterback he was at the University of Alabama and make him a first or second round draft pick in the NFL, Charlton, this will be the biggest genius in college football. You think about having Baker Mayfield for 1 year. He wins the Heisman Trophy. He has Kyler Murray for 1 year. He wins the Heisman Trophy. Now he has Jalen Hurts for 1 year. And he hasn't won a starting job yet, but if he wins a starting job at Oklahoma, and this team goes on and makes the college football playoff, Charlton, and have a successful year, there's not enough money in the NFL that he can turn down. I mean, everybody in the NFL will chase down Lincoln Riley because no coach in his first 2 years has had the success that Lincoln Riley has had, producing back-to-back Heisman Trophy winners and trying to produce a third, Charlton.
What do you think has been the reason that Oklahoma almost every year has played for a national championship, or at least in the playoffs? I even go back to the days of Switzer, of course, when they beat Penn State. And I know they've had many teams throughout the years that have just been dominant teams. The team with Adrian Peterson that was blown out by USC in the Orange Bowl 55-19, many people thought that was one of the better teams that Oklahoma had. They also played in a national championship game against Florida, and they lost to Tim Tebow. I think it was 24-14. So here's a team that's gotten there. They've been in the college football playoff where they lost to Georgia in that great Rose Bowl game, and that was after that Mayfield took a hit to the ribs by one of the Georgia players. Many people thought it was a bad play, a dirty play, but it still happened. And then last year against Alabama, they outscored Alabama in the last three quarters. But that's a team that's been knocking and knocking and knocking on that door. Why can't they crack the nut, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, they used to win the championships back in the 80s and 90s. But, to be consistent enough to get to that level, you got to look at, there's 119 programs that don't even get an opportunity to play in the bowl playoff series.
Yeah.
But Oklahoma has built a legacy of production out there, Charlton, regardless of which coaches they had. You think about the previous coach that they had there. He was constantly knocking on the door, but just could not get in.
Yep.
He succumbed to the pressure and resigned, turned it over to Lincoln Riley, Charlton. He has the team on the cusp. You think about it. You've been in the playoffs back-to-back years.
Yeah.
And what teams can say that other than Alabama and Clemson?
Yeah.
So you've been one of the top three elitist programs in the United States under this coach for the 2 years that he's been there.
Let me get your thoughts on something, because I know you follow a lot of what happens in college football. Would you say I know you talk about that long 56-game winning streak they had way back in the day for Oklahoma, but just give me your
58-game winning streak.
58-game. Okay, 58-game winning streak. How would you compare, say, his best team against Barry Switzer's best team, which I still think is the team that beat Penn State 25-10 and Joe Paterno down in the Orange Bowl in Miami, and then you look at what they have now? How would you rate this team and what they did last year versus some of the teams over the last 40 years, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, people always want to draw a comparison over decades, Charlton. You can't. It's just like when people would say Jim Brown's the greatest running back of all time.
Right.
Jim Brown played against defensive linemen who weighed 250, 260 pounds.
Yeah.
Those linemen now in the NFL are 80 and 90 pounds larger.
Yep.
The linebackers are the size of the defensive linemen that Jim Brown played against. In those eras and the dominance of teams, what you have to look at is the point differential in teams when you're starting to compare, because you can't compare apples to oranges with players of an era because of the size and speed and how the dynamics of the game has changed.
Yeah.
But the one thing you can change, what you can compare, is the statistical difference. Are those teams more dominant defensively than the current teams of today? Because the evolution of athletes don't allow you to take old-time players and interchange them with modern-day players, Charlton, just the physicality of the game.
Yeah.
But I don't care what era you're playing in, you win 58 consecutive games. You can talk about what you've seen on TV.
Yeah.
Everybody that's in sports now talks about what they've seen on TV because they're not knowledgeable enough to go back and read the box scores of games. I mean, when you think about the greatest victories in college football, you talked about Oklahoma beating Penn State. Oklahoma never scored 100 points in a game.
Yeah.
There's teams in college football that have scored over 100 points and shut somebody out. Would that be considered the greatest offensive output of all time? When you look at that, would that be the greatest offense and defense ever? So when you think about comparing those teams of the 90s and 80s with Barry Switzer and Oklahoma to Bud Wilkinson, I got to give it to Bud Wilkinson because 58 games is no sneeze in anybody.
No, that's true.
You got to find somebody who can even win 40 games. Have a 40-game winning streak. It's not fair. So that 58 games has put everybody out of reach. It's like Joe DiMaggio's 56-game hitting streak.
Yeah.
Nobody's going to come close to it because the game has changed since then. You don't have pitchers complete games. They don't pitch complete games.
Right.
Just like the players back then, now there's situational players that alter the outcome of games.
Let me get your thoughts on and I like going back in the history the way you do and bringing the past, with the future and looking at the current situation now for different programs. I want to look back in history in college football and look at the top 6 single-game rushing performances in FBS history. Now, I think number 6, I'm going to give it, and you don't have to agree, it's just my opinion, but I think Troy Davis out of Iowa State, 378 yards. He did that in 1996, but because he plays for Iowa State as opposed to playing for Iowa, it may go under some people's radar. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, you think about it. When he set that record playing in the Big 12, look at the teams that he played in the Big 12 that season. That's a conference that had Oklahoma, Texas, Oklahoma State, Kansas State, teams of that nature. So he wasn't playing against the also-ran schools, Charlton. But being able to do that and to catapult that into an NFL career was just an outstanding feat for the young man. But just think about it. Carrying the ball for 300-plus yards in a college game.
In one game.
You can't get quarterbacks to pass for that many yards.
You can't do that, that's for sure. Now, here's a player that I thought was amazing, but I thought, why did he go to San Diego State? Because he really wasn't recruited by a lot of people. And that's the great Marshall Faulk. He played at San Diego State. He's a Southern kid. 386 yards in 1991. I saw when he lit up USC down at the Murph in San Diego, and that's when he really came on the map. But that was a guy that you wish West Coast people thought, why isn't he at Southern Cal as opposed to San Diego State? Big C, your thoughts?
Well, you think about it. How did he get out of his own backyard? This kid grew up in Louisiana.
Yeah.
Why did he end up at LSU? End up out at San Diego State because he wasn't highly touted. USC didn't want him. So his option to play big-time college football was to go to San Diego State.
Yeah.
We know what became of him in his career in the NFL when he was playing with the Rams, the greatest show on turf.
Yep.
He started out with the Indianapolis Colts. They traded him. He went to the Rams, and the rest was history. Super Bowl victory, Hall of Fame inductee.
Yeah, he's absolutely just an amazing. And again, one of those players that's not a 6'2", 220-pound running back, someone like a Marcus Allen or a Bo Jackson. But he was fleet with his feet and had great cutback ability, could catch the ball out of the backfield. Really appreciate Hall of Famer Marshall Faulk. Also, number 4 guy. I'm going to go to a smaller school because many people may just look for the bigger conferences and the bigger teams in those conferences. But when I look at Tony Sands, he played at Kansas. He had 396 yards, also in 1991. And I wonder, what was it about 1991 that made people run so fast? Big C, your thoughts?
Well, you think about Sands' production in that game, 391 yards. His quarterback never threw for that many yards in one game during the season.
Nope.
So he was the workhorse and the only lifeline that the University of Kansas had. They've always been a doormat for the past 2 decades in the Big 12 Conference, and everybody can hone in on them, Charlton, to stack the line of scrimmage.
Yeah.
But Tony Sands proved everybody on that day that he was the best running back in the history of college football.
No Gale Sears, but boy, could he play a Big C. Trying to find the Wizard of Oz. Maybe he was looking for that yellow brick road that you talk about with Butter, Big C. I want to give you a number 3 guy, and you might appreciate this one because he's a Hall of Famer. LaDainian Tomlinson out of TCU, 406 yards. He did that in 1999. That's when Prince was doing his thing in Big C. So he was partying like it was 1999. And LT was running like it was 1999. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, he helped change that program's outlook in Fort Worth, Texas, Charlton. This was a team that eventually ended up in the Rose Bowl after LaDainian Thomas left, but he changed the culture at TCU. He made it a viable program, and they entered the Big 12 and dominated that conference.
Yep.
But LT was a dominant player in college and with the Chargers and finished his career with the Jets prior to getting into the NFL Hall of Fame.
Another running back that stands under 6 feet, but it's not how big you are, it's how big your heart is and your ability is. A guy that made plays. Another player that's in the news a lot today. My number 2 guy, people may not agree with it, but I think Melvin Gordon. He played at Wisconsin, had 408 yards in one game in 2014. And I'm telling you, because it only lasted 1 week by the next guy, but when you can run for 408 yards in one game, the benchmark for a running back is 100 yards. This guy played 4 games in one game, if that makes any sense. Your thoughts?
Well, what's so phenomenal about Melvin Gordon's 408-yard rushing performance, Charlton, even though it's not the all-time record today, it's still the greatest rushing performance by a running back in a game in college football history.
Yeah.
Because in amassing that 408 yards, Melvin Gordon did that in only 3 quarters.
Wow.
That's what nobody realizes. It only took him 3 quarters to gain 408 yards.
Yep.
And he was the workhorse in Wisconsin. And when you think about the history of that program turning out great running backs, and then he comes in and breaks all the records that even Heisman Trophy winners had set. at the University of Wisconsin. But like I said, the most astonishing part about that, you mentioned he's in a lot of new media today with the San Diego Chargers holding out, wanting a new contract, is that he accomplished that feat in only 3 quarters of football.
Yeah, the LA Chargers need to pay him his money, but they probably won't because they can always find somebody else to do it. Samaje Perine, the #1 runner, again, one of those talented running backs they've always had from Oklahoma, whether you think about Billy Sims from back in the day, and just so many others that are just worn that uniform, that crimson and cream of Oklahoma. But when you can run in one game for 427 yards, that was back in 2014, that's taking a lot of guys and making them miss because you can only block for so long if you're an offensive lineman. That's a lot of natural ability. Big C, your thoughts?
And he did that a week after Gordon had set the record, Charlton, and he did it against the University of Kansas.
Yeah.
But you think about great running backs that the University of Oklahoma's had. They've had Steve Owens, a Heisman Trophy winner in '69. Joe Washington, a great running back. Greg Pruitt. You had Billy Sims, who went on to win a Heisman Trophy also. You had Marcus Dupree, who was probably the most phenomenal Heisman player, high school player ever to play college football, but leg injury shortened his career.
Yeah.
And then you get Samaje Perine, Charlton, that goes out and dominates the University of Kansas, who sets the all-time single-game rushing record. And eventually, even that record will fall. We've seen records fall continuously in college football, Charlton, but Samaje Perine right now stands on top of the mountain as the top single-game rusher in the history of college football.
And it shows you how Oklahoma. And you ask again, now I've never been to Norman, Oklahoma, but I know it's a football factory. In a lot of the, I guess, smaller towns, you're not going to find maybe LA USC is kind of unique to have a large metropolitan market with a dominant college football program. University of Miami, also in their heyday, they were unique. But Texas and Austin's not like playing in Dallas. And when you look at Alabama, Tuscaloosa's not like playing in Miami or Dallas or Los Angeles. Even when you look at Ohio State, Columbus is not like playing in Cleveland. So oftentimes we'll have these smaller markets that have the better programs. But I just think it's phenomenal when you can look back at some of the players that were dominant in college and now they're dominant in high school. I want to just touch on one thing in the NFL before we get into the Big C pause. Now, I think about Maryland football. DJ Durkin, after he had been fired because of the death of a player, Jordan McNair. What an insult to the family of McNair. Yesterday, the Atlanta Falcons made big news at opening the training camp. And would you believe that Durkin is now on their staff after being let go by Maryland? Big C, your thoughts?
Well, I look at that, Charlton, and I found it quite appalling. The young man, Jordan McNair, was from the Atlanta area.
Yeah.
DJ Durkin was fired at Maryland because of the lack of medical assistance to this young man when he was down. He was down for 42 minutes before EMS arrived, Charlton. That meant that the coaching staff, the medical staff on the team, and even the coaching staff, the strength and conditioning staff, did not care and was not attentive to their players' well-being.
Yeah.
But to have, the young Jordan McNair, who is deceased now, from the Atlanta area, and then you bring in DJ Durkin, where his family and his parents still live, Charlton.
Yeah.
And say, okay, we're going to embrace him into this area because, I still feel that he's culpable in the young man's death.
Yeah.
But to have him on the news, to be in the spotlight, they'll say, well, he's not going to be in front of the camera. He's just going to be a videotape guy. He's still been brought into this town where he was responsible for this young man's death, who was laid to rest in the Atlanta area, Charlton.
Yeah. It's like I've heard when you get a scab, you don't keep opening it because you reopen the scab and it brings back the pain. And of all cities where he would get a job, Atlanta, I thought Arthur Blank could have done a lot better job because he's such a conscientious man. But I think oftentimes when you win, that's more important than how people feel. I want to get on to one more story, though, before we get into the Big C pause. And it's because, I've been telling you, and I know you might laugh at what I'm going to tell you, but I keep telling you that the Pac-12 will have a national championship football team again. I know we tried to get Oregon in it. USC's the last one to do it. And when USC was so good, they just wouldn't play against some of the top teams in the SEC. But the Pac-12 has done something. I know they listened to us because we've been saying this for 2 years. They've moved the Pac-12 football championship from beautiful Santa Clara, California, Silicon Valley, where nobody cares. They had about 20,000 at the Pac-12 championship game last year, Big C. And the year before that, with USA Stafford, they had about 30,000 in an 80,000 seat stadium, a 70-something thousand seat stadium. They're moving it to, of all places, your most favorite place in the universe, Las Vegas, for 2020. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, I mean, they got to wait till they get a stadium up in Las Vegas, but that's still out of bounds. I mean, going to Las Vegas, yes, it's a destination city, but will it really draw Pac-12 fans? I mean, we've seen Pac-12 teams play in that Las Vegas Bowl out there, Charlton, and they still haven't been able to sell it out. I mean, I think the last 3 years has been a Pac-12 team in the Las Vegas Bowl. Playing down there in Sam Boyd Stadium, you know, the UNLV campus.
About 35,000.
They haven't packed that. So, I mean, the Pac-12 needs to reassess how they market themselves. You take the top 2 teams in the Pac-12 that's playing for that championship. Whichever team has the best record,
it's
on their home stadium. If you got another home game in the Pac-12, you're going to be more inclined to have a sellout than what you will be trying to get those fans to travel.
I think that makes sense, and that I'm saying it didn't happen because it does make sense. It doesn't always happen. What we're going to do is come up on what's called a Big C pause, and we're going to come back and talk more about some Major League Baseball. Also, some talk about the NBA and how billionaires should behave when they have money. If you're a billionaire, you kind of do what you want to do, last I heard. We'll take the pause and come right back. We hope that you'll come back with us. All right, we are back on Big C Sports after what's called the Big C pause, and we thank our sponsors for all of their support. And we're on the #1 podcast network in the United States of America, iHeartRadio. You can follow Big C Sports 24 hours a day, 7 days a week on iHeartRadio podcast. You can follow Big C Sports on Apple Podcasts. You can follow Big C Sports on Google Podcasts. You can follow Big C Sports on Speaker. If you have Xfinity Comcast, you can follow Big C Sports on TV with Xfinity Comcast. And what I really like is the app called Alexa. If you have Alexa, say, Alexa, play Big C Sports Podcast. You'll hear from our sponsors. You'll hear welcome to the show. And then I'll introduce Big C and he'll do his thing. And this doesn't happen without the help of sponsors. And there's another thing that's happening with Big C Sports. I really look forward to it. Sports Pro Hero. You can go on there, and if you're at college, you can help raise money. And we'll talk more about that later in the month, and perhaps more so also in August. So this is a lot of good things that are happening. Growth doesn't happen overnight. But I want to say something to defend myself, Big C, because it's a sad dog that won't wag its own tail. And I've been apologizing since the earthquake out here in California. We've been having some technical difficulties with our sound system, and in calling, trying to figure out what's going on. It's a lot of things that happen when antennas and towers get knocked out. So we have a much clearer signal today. But I just want to thank people for bearing with us as we were going through that. Big C, what do they say? The show must go on even if your signal's crappy sometimes. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, the show must always go on. I appreciate being able to do the show 5 nights a week, Charlton, to reach out around the world and hopefully give some insight of what our personal thoughts are in the sports world and even in the political world from time to time. Because regardless of what show you listen to, when it's on radio, it's opinions. And everyone's opinions matter to some degree. It's just who opinions you trust the most.
And like we always say, Google it. If you can't Google what we say, then don't believe us either. Big C, that means you could not get a job from POTUS, because if you Google the truth, you would be out in 2 or 3 days. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, you know, as Marlo said today, he's dishonest. You know, he doesn't tell the truth. He doesn't even answer written questions.
Well, I got to ask you one more thing, because I know you really have you played at some of the same golf courses that POTUS has played on, so I know you might have an affinity for it. Whether you voted for him or not, I don't know. But is he still looking for President Obama's birth certificate, or is he looking for a good attorney to hire from the DA, Big C, your thoughts?
Well, I think he's trying to find out who shot Biggie and Tupac. I think that's his next history that he's trying to uncover.
Well, anybody, if you live long enough, you're going to have people accuse you of something. Just make sure that they're in the wrong, and sometimes their ego's too big to admit it. That's what POTUS is. But I want to talk about something that's also big in the world of Major League Baseball. You look at the Yankees. The Yankees' 14-12 win last night. It was a 5-hour and 14-minute game where the Yankees came from behind to win against the Minnesota Twins. You have big market versus small market, but the results were amazing. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, it was an amazing game, Charlton, but, the length of games. We saw a game in Boston a couple of weeks ago that went just under 5 hours. Matter of fact, the transit system had shut down. People had to find another way home.
Yeah.
We talked about yesterday also DJ LeMahieu leading the American League in batting for the Yankees. And this was one of those epic battles last night, Charlton. A game to go 5 hours and 14 minutes. Ending in a 14-12 Yankees win.
Yep.
We've talked about the offensive productivity of the Yankees. Major League Baseball is going to lose fans if you got to sit in a stadium for 5 hours.
Yep.
They're going to have to find a way to congest the time. They need to put time limits on games. They're going to have to put time limits between pitches.
Yep.
Visits to the mound, because baseball is just 9 innings.
Yeah.
And to go 5 hours playing those 9 innings, I think that's becoming unacceptable. We talk about a lot of things that's wrong with baseball, but the length of time in the game is what fans will struggle with.
Yeah, I think you're right about that. They got to find a way to shorten it. Just like anything else, if it goes on too long, people are going to find something else to do. I do want to touch on tonight's Major League Baseball schedule. The Giants, they didn't get the sweep over the Cubs, but they've been playing the best baseball, really, in the month of July. But it's happened after they talked about trading away Madison Bumgarner and several other players. The Cubs got the better of them today. I believe it was by 4-1 over in San Francisco at Oracle Ballpark, formerly AT&T Pac Bell, and who knows what they're going to name it next. But tonight's schedule in Major League Baseball, you have Colorado at Washington, St. Louis is at Pittsburgh, Cleveland, they're at Toronto, San Diego's at the New York Mets, Kansas City's at Atlanta. Again, I really like Atlanta. They have Keller versus Tehran throwing tonight on the mound. Atlanta's a team, sometimes they can just lay an egg, but they're a team that's really going to chase down the Dodgers. I would love to see them push them up into the final 5 or 6 games of the year. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, the Braves are a young team. They made the playoffs last year. They were eliminated by the Dodgers, but they grew so much during that time. They basically brought back their lineup intact, Charlton.
Yep.
They have delivered this year. They have them on top of the National League East. And as the season gets hotter here in these summer months, it bodes well for Atlanta because that ball will carry out of SunTrust Park that they have there in Atlanta.
Yeah, it's a beautiful place. Atlanta reminds me of San Diego in a sense. The stadiums almost look the same. They built a lot of development around the outfield, but it's a shame that they moved them out of the Olympic Stadium and they moved them out of Atlanta. I don't know how far downtown they are, but I know San Francisco's ballpark is right there in the heart of downtown San Francisco off the Embarcadero. Used to be down at Candlestick Point where the 49ers and Giants play. But teams can come and go, but they still have beautiful facilities. I want to say the New York Yankees at Minnesota Twins. Tonight should be another barn burner of a game. Miami at Chicago White Sox. The LA Angels of Anaheim at the LA Dodgers. And this West Coast series is a series where if the Dodgers don't win, you think, well, maybe it's just one of those things that rivals do. But they got had last night by the Angels. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, yeah, they got beat up on a little bit last night by the Angels, Charlton. I mean, the Dodgers went into this game. They had announced that they had a $100 million renovation on their stadium, but that wasn't enough to thwart off the Angels, Charlton, in the end.
Yeah.
The Angels came from behind last night, took the lead, and they won the game when Bellinger got thrown out at the plate, Charlton, trying to score the tying run of the game. But the Angels, you can talk about that little brother syndrome playing in a city.
Yeah.
But it comes down to what you do between the stripes, Charlton, on that diamond when you go out there to play baseball. And when you look at the Yankees, I mean, not the Yankees, but the Dodgers last night, little brother came up and rose up and smacked him in the chin.
Yeah, little brothers can do that sometime. Barrera going against Springsteen tonight down and Chavez Ravine. Boston at Tampa Bay, some matchup games. Colorado at Washington. Philadelphia at Detroit. Cincinnati at Milwaukee. You have Oakland at Houston. Oakland got the better of Houston last night. That's a team that has hardly any money in the Oakland A's. They're probably the most successful, underappreciated franchise. They have 3 World Series championships, but they can't get more than about 25 to 30,000 people in that stadium. So they are going to build a new stadium downtown Oakland in the next couple of years. But here's a team that can compete against Houston, which has all the money, all the traffic. They even have a sunroof in their stadium. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, I mean, all Major League Baseball teams have money. They all have the same amount of money. They have this thing called revenue sharing.
Yeah.
Just like the NFL owners. We talked about all of them receiving $275 million prior to even opening training camp. The Major League owners are in that same boat, Charlton, where they receive hundreds of millions of dollars every year. It's a matter of how you choose to spend the money, because the Oakland A's have been futile over the years. As a player becomes a star in Major League, they want to trade him. So that's what keeps the fans from coming to the ballpark. To keep hoping that you're going to win on a budget doesn't work. I mean, it's like, do you want the Bentley sitting over there, or do you want to drive the Fiat? So you got to make up your mind. The Oakland A's have been trying to get around in a Fiat, competing against Bentley for the last couple decades. So they're going to have to keep some of those players in-house. If you look around the major leagues, half the rosters, Charlton, have stars on their teams that were once Oakland A's over the last 10 years. So that's a problem with the organization. You go back to when they had the Bash brothers in the 80s. They grew players and kept players in-house. But eventually, they got rid of all of those players who went on to have stellar careers with other programs.
They tend to do that a lot where they have the money. Some people have the money and won't spend it. Baltimore at Arizona, Texas at Seattle, and the Cubs got the best of San Francisco today. There's just a lot of good things happening in baseball. I'm really looking forward. I know they talk about it's a game of October, but baseball gets good in July, and it's getting good now, so really want to see more swinging of the bat, and the home runs keep flying, but no one's talking about juicing. You ever have a butter milkshake? Is there anything as butter in a milkshake, or would that be too gross to drink? See your thoughts.
Well, you got to think about the cream that you make the butter with and the cream that you make the ice cream with. It all comes from the same substance, so you do technically have butter in your milkshake.
Butter in the milkshake. Speaking of butter, the NBA, they've been greasing some contracts, people been slipping things through. Butter makes things slippery. But I want to get your thoughts, and I know we talked about it before, with Adam Silver talking about looking in the NBA teams for tampering in the early free agency. What a difference does it make when a team wants to trade a player at any point, Big C? They can do it at any time. Now, they can do that without having any fight back from the league, even after signing a long-term contract. But it seems like, just my opinion, there's been so many men of color dictating where they're going to go, where they're going to play, how much they're going to play for, and maybe that's an undercurrent, but people resist that more than when a baseball player signs for $400 or $300 million. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, the cry and fight back about the NBA is that the minority players are demanding where they want to be. They can sign a long-term contract with a team and say, look, I'm unhappy being here, or I'm not going to sign with you. I demand a trade, and these are the three teams that I'll accept a trade to. We've seen that over the past decade where NBA players have come out and cried about that. And now that owners are saying, well, even in free agency, these players are dictating where they want to go, because you can't sign a player that quick in the free agency, an hour in the free agency, 30 minutes in the free agency, if you have not already discussed the paperwork of what the contract structure is going to look like. You can't put together a $150 million contract in a matter of 30 to 60 minutes. And so that's what they're crying about, is that the players have so much control of the NBA. Now, you got to understand, the players own 54% of the league. So the owners are limited in what they can do. But owners are trading players all the time at record numbers, superstar players. Look at the number of superstar players that were traded after the season ended. It rivaled what free agency did, Charlton. It changed the total landscape of the NBA. No one is crying about what the owners are doing. Everyone is mad about what the players are doing.
I wonder if it's really as much as color. I had a conversation with a couple of lawyer friends. One of my lawyer friends, he looked like Sylvester Stallone when Sylvester Stallone was younger, right? And we were just talking about money and how much money lawyers make. And lawyers say that they get paid all the time because so many people have needs. But we were talking about, because in Los Angeles, everybody cares about the Lakers and they care about the Dodgers. Even though the Rams are putting $2 billion into a stadium, it's hard to find the average LA person that really cares. I mean, they took the Coliseum down from, I think, 90,000 to 78,000 because they put in a big press box. They still haven't sold out. I'm sure they'll sell out the new football arena. But as some of the lawyers were saying, even some white lawyers said, they'll bring up when the guys like Mike Trout make $430 million. Oh, he's a great player. Well, the Angels are not in first place. But when they talk about guys like Davis or LeBron James or Kawhi Leonard, it's always a lot of black guys are making a lot of money. And maybe it's a subconscious thing. Do you think that really is the issue, that the skin color, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, skin color has always been an issue in major sports talk, and even prior to integration and after integration.
Yeah.
The fight back against professional basketball players and what they do, you only hear this fight back against the African-American players in the NBA.
Yeah.
When you look at what happened in free agency and Major League Baseball back during the summer, when white players were holding teams ransom about what was on it, there was no cry about that. There was no cry about Bryce Harper. Bryce Harper wasn't even an all-star caliber number player.
No, he wasn't.
Getting that type of money. Manny Machado was a disruptive player with two teams in Baltimore and
the Dodgers.
in LA.
Yeah.
But, the Major League Baseball players were getting the money, and it was acceptable because most of them looked like the fans.
Yeah.
When you have the NBA players who do not look like the majority of the fans, people say they got this uppity mentality.
Yeah.
That they're sitting there holding teams ransom. Think about what was said about Russell Wilson.
Yeah.
When he had a demand for a new contract in Seattle, otherwise he wasn't showing up. They said, how dare he be that uppity to hold the team ransom for what he wants?
Yeah.
No one cried about the money that
Kirk Cousins,
Aaron Rodgers got in Green Bay. No one cried about the money that Matt Ryan got
in Atlanta.
Or even Jimmy Garoppolo got in
San Francisco.
Yeah. Aaron Rodgers has been to more Super Bowls than Aaron Rodgers. He's been to more Super Bowls than Matt Ryan.
Yeah.
And they were making more money than him.
Yeah.
He was the backbone of his organization, being the leading rusher and the leading passer.
Yeah.
No other quarterback in the NFL was doing that. And he felt that if he was going to continue at that high level of play, he needed to be paid for it. Just like in the NBA, when black players are saying, this is what I demand, and the media is always coming. Well, he's coming with these outrageous demands.
Yeah.
Dak Prescott. He's being told he should get a Dallas Cowboys a home team discount. The most valuable franchise in the NFL is saying that the black quarterback should play for less, even though he's been better than his white counterpart over the last 3 years.
Yeah.
This is always the drawback for the media. We haven't heard owners say this. We hear the media saying this. The white media is coming out saying black players should be willing to take less and not cry when they don't make what their white counterparts do.
Well, I think obviously and again, we say Google it, so some people say, well, you guys talk about race too much, or you talk about politics too much, or you talk about whatever. As long as our sponsors don't mind, we'll keep talking about it. But I gotta ask you this one question, and maybe it's a dumb question, it won't be the first one. With race being such an issue in this society, but everywhere society is integrated, companies and organizations have made more money. Curt Flood, the help with free agency, African-American man. You're hard to find an NBA basketball team that doesn't feature African-American players. They're all worth almost 10 times what they were worth 20 years ago, Big C. You can say the same for NFL football and some Major League Baseball as well. You can look at Hollywood, the movie Black Panther, that they set records with a black producer, director, and cast. Everywhere, look at the music industry. So if mainstream cares about green, everywhere you look where black Americans have been added to the organization, they've made record profits. Why is there still a pushback if the money shows up with the integration, your thoughts?
Well, there's not a pushback from the owners. If you look at the most valuable organizations in the NBA, they are led by African-American players.
Yeah.
At least 4 of their starters on their rosters are African-American. You look at the same thing in the NFL. You look at America's team. The most valuable financial team in the NFL, the Dallas Cowboys.
Yeah.
They're led by African-American quarterbacks.
And they don't want to pay them.
There's no drawback against that. They're even more valuable than the New England Patriots.
Yeah.
And they're led by a 6-time Super Bowl winner.
Yeah.
So something matters about the minority athlete when you see them involved in games.
Yeah.
When we talked about Dolph, the presence of Tiger Woods, it drove up the ratings. There was no sponsors out there saying we didn't want to cover this because Tiger Woods is playing.
Right.
Yeah, sponsors who draw out, when Tiger's not playing. Look how much of an attraction Serena Williams is. Even though she's lost her last 3 Grand Slams appearances, Charlton, she is a gate attraction for television revenue.
Yeah.
So when we look at what minority athletes have done to the pockets of the wealthy in America, from the broadcast companies to the sponsors, they have increased it. When we look at endorsements of athletes on television, when we look at commercial sponsorship, the majority of those are minority athletes that we see on these commercials.
Yeah.
So when you say that, people might say, well, we talk about colors too much, whether it's minority versus mainstream. No, we don't. We put a mirror to what society is doing and what Madison Avenue is doing.
Well, that's very well said. And going back to the days of the late Muhammad Ali, the greatest, Floyd Money Mayweather in his fight against a guy who's not even a boxer and who's a racist, a xenophobic bigot, also has some religious issues with other people's culture, but they put him in the ring with McGregor, and I think it broke the bank for the largest fight in the history of the universe. Big C, black man did that. Your thoughts?
Well, yeah, I mean, that purse was a purse based on racism. You had this white guy who was denigrating minorities and everybody else through the promotion of the fight. And I wonder how the mainstream media had looked at that. If Floyd Money Mayweather was using all the profanity that Conor McGregor were, how would they have accepted that? An African-American man, you dropping the F-bomb continuously during press conferences.
Yeah.
It was accepted because they said, well, that's just the kind of guy he is.
Right.
But, if it had been Mayweather dropping the F-bomb during the press
conference,
my
goodness,
they'd have said, how embarrassing and how unprofessional.
Yeah.
Lack of character. All these words would have came into play. So, you can promote it from one perspective when you look a certain way, but when you don't look like mainstream, then all of a sudden you will be ostracized.
Well, you'll find the same thing happening in broadcast, whether it's podcast or broadcast, TV, radio. If you're mainstream American, and I know you've heard it many times, even though it's about who you know in this business, as the color line is crossed, and I even hate saying color line, as people start being more fair in their employment practices, and you'll start allowing more men of color to work in broadcast, you're going to see the same thing happen in broadcast that happened on the field, because they're going to bring in an audience that you've excluded for the most part, unless someone's a very well-known athlete. I just think that's something to look at also. I want to jump on something with another player who they're trying to already market like Michael Jordan. Before Michael Jordan was Michael Jordan, he played at North Carolina, and then he got into the NBA. Then he became Michael Jordan, the Michael Jordan, not just an athlete, a basketball player. Think about Zion Williamson. He has a shoe deal. Big C, it's the richest ever for a rookie. The endorsement deal, agreeing to align the New Orleans Pelicans, #1 overall pick in Zion Williamson, African-American man, last I checked, and I think they follow Big C so much, I haven't heard anyone call him a freak since we've been getting on that. Call your mother a freak, or your wife or your kids a freak, but don't call him a freak. That's such an anathema to his parents. I haven't heard him called that by knuckleheads lately, but that contract, I just want to get your thinking on it, because it extends 5 years and becomes the richest annual rookie shoe deal in the history of the NBA universe. Black man did that. Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, it's a contract believed to be north of $10 million a year, the richest shoe contract ever in the history of rookie coming into the NBA.
Yeah.
And all this came from that blowout shoe that he had in that game that Duke had on national television when Zion went down and the side of the shoe went up on his ankle.
Yeah.
So Nike recovered from this. Everybody said, he would never touch Nike. Nike is too big of an entity to let something like Zion Williams go.
Yeah.
Here's Zion Williams $10 million. It comes back as $1 billion towards Nike, because what young man doesn't want to have the Zion Williams special shoe?
Yeah.
Because you think that you're going to become an elite athlete because of the shoe that you wear.
Yeah.
And I'm proud of Zion being able to get this money, Charlie, because if the money wasn't available and Nike did not feel that he was a promotional entity, Charlie, they wouldn't have given him this money. But to get this young man and guarantee this young man $50 million, Charlie, over the first 5 years of his career, people talk about the money that a #1 draft pick gets. This money exceeds all the money that he will get from the New Orleans Pelicans, Charlie, in the first 5 years. So when people are talking about, free agency and somebody wants a max contract, think about it. If Zion Williams can live up to the expectations that he lived up to in college, if he can do anything close to that in the NBA, what will be the price of his next shoe contract as well as his next NBA contract?
That's so true, and we hope that he makes it. It's not how much money. We all want to have $100 million. Heck, I want to be a billionaire. There was a song about that. I keep playing it, and if it happens, great. But it's what you keep. Pro Bowl, future Hall of Fame running back. Adrian Peterson for the Washington Redskins now made his fame really in Minnesota, but he's made over $100 million. He's the highest earning running back in the history of the NFL, black man. And if you think about reports that he's having some financial troubles, a lot of guys make bad investments. When you get $100 million, you still got to pay the government in taxes, some business dealings, and people are going to sue you when you're rich no matter what it is. I don't know his whole situation, but I know that came out. A lot of players deal with that. So when you hear Zion Williamson signing a big contract, another African American breaking the bank, we all go through something, but what advice can guys who are getting $100 million, can they get to keep from being in that situation? Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, the first thing that you do as a professional athlete is called deferment of money.
Yeah.
And every athlete, when they get
Allen Iverson did that.
And I don't know why the professional leagues don't do this.
Yeah.
Is that you have to defer between 10 and 15% of your annual salary every year for another 10 years down the road, that you can't touch it for 10 years after you're through playing.
Yeah.
I look at Adrian Peterson, when you live an absorptive lifestyle and you're saying that you're distracted from your money, how the hell are you going to be distracted from your money? All professional leagues have this thing called direct deposit.
Yeah.
That it goes directly into your bank. They're not handing you paychecks anymore like they did when we played.
Right.
That doesn't happen. You don't walk up to the pay window and get your check now on Monday.
Yeah.
It's called direct deposit, Charlton, that you get it the next day after the game.
Yeah.
So Adrian Peterson to say that there's bad investors and people took his money, no, you're a damn fool.
Yeah.
That's the problem.
Yeah.
If you got 5 baby mamas like Adrian Peterson, you're going to pay hellified child support. When you feel that you have to upkeep everybody's life, you're foolish for doing that. They didn't have the money prior to you getting it. They still don't have the money after you got it. But when you feel that you have to support everybody, and that you're not salient enough to look at your own bank account, there's a thing that comes every month called a bank statement. Okay?
Yeah.
They send you a balance to your account every month. And if you're stupid enough not to read it, I'm not empathetic towards Adrian Peterson. Here's a guy got $100 million. Think about how many people can get $100 million and help other people out and still have money in their life. But to sit up and say you made some bad investments or people squandered off your money, what the hell were you doing every week and every month while they were having access to your money?
Lifting weights, big. See, sometime when you lift, don't take the backpack with you. I was at the gym, and I'm not even joking about this. At the gym, some guys in there with a duffel bag. I guess he hasn't learned to open a bank account yet, but it was several hundreds, not several $100, but there were several hundreds, like rows of hundreds. When you go into the bank, they give you that stack of hundreds that's about 2 inches thick. It was in his duffel bag. I don't know if he played sports or maybe he was just working overtime someplace. I want to say you can follow Big C Sports 24.
Well, look at Ricky Henderson. When Ricky Henderson signed his first big contract with Oakland A's, they gave him $1 million.
Yeah.
Ricky Henderson took the check and put it on and framed it and put it on the wall in his house.
Yeah.
Oakland A's called him a couple of months later and said, Ricky, what'd you do with the check? We've been waiting on it to clear the bank. He's like, I framed that. It's on the wall in my house.
No, he didn't.
Well, you need to take it to the bank, Ricky. It's only good for 180 days.
Well, he didn't say I framed it the way he talked. He said Ricky framed it. He said Ricky framed it. Big C, that's funny. You can follow Big C Sports 24 hours a day, 7 days a week on the #1 podcast network in the United States of America. That's iHeartRadio podcast. You can also follow Big C Sports on Google Podcasts. You can follow Big C Sports on Apple Podcasts. You can follow Big C Sports on Spreaker. You can find us on YouTube. If you have a television set, and a lot of people still have them, you can follow Big C Sports on Xfinity, Comcast. But what I really like is the app by Alexa. If you go home or even on your tablet, say, Alexa, play Big C Sports Podcast, and you'll hear from our sponsors. You'll hear welcome to the show. I'll introduce Big C. He'll do his thing. So I really thank our sponsors for their support. Big C, I want to close with this story. We talked about guys making $100 million, and everybody wants to have $100 million, even those who say they don't. I know a lot of preachers that want $100 million and some that already have it. But CEO Todd Carmichael, he said he wanted to pay off $22,000 in student lunch debt in Wyoming, in a school district in Wyoming. Would you believe the school district declined his offer? They said they would not accept the money for the kids' lunches, but they believe in God, yet they prefer to use shaming those kids that don't have the money. Big C, your thoughts?
This is the problem with America. We talk about feel-good stories all the time. There's always negativity in the news and there's negativity in the sports. here is a corporate CEO. He's not even living in Pennsylvania.
No.
In Wyoming. He's from Pennsylvania, Charlton. And here it is. He's coming into a school district often to pay off student lunch debt. This means that families don't have the money to pay off their students' lunch bill. And the school district is saying, no, we would rather shame the students, destroy their self-esteem, and not feed them lunch other than having an outsider come in and pay off their debt. I thought that, humanity still existed in America. But here we have people in a school district saying, no, we're not going to accept the money. When you're in debt as a school district in America, and you have a private citizen offering to come in and pay off that debt, but you're saying, no, we would rather shame the young men and young ladies that come to our schools to give them low self-esteem, to point them out and not feed them lunch, which is illegal by the federal government, illegal to deny a child nutrition in school. But to have the leaders of the school district turning down an opportunity for these kids to come to school next year with a clean slate, I think that's totally appalling, and it needs to really be looked at by the national news and shame the school district and the people in charge of that school board.
Well, they call it God's country up in Wyoming and Montana and places like that, the Midwest, but sometimes you got to have a heart for people, and we hope to bring it to people all the time. We've talked about the Mueller report. Read it. It doesn't matter who you vote for. It doesn't matter who you believe in. Our country still has to live on. I love what Elijah Cummings said. He's a powerful man, African-American man out of Washington, D.C. He said that what's going on is going to affect our country for the next 100 years. And we all got to be a part of a solution. Don't just complain. Be a part of something. We talked about NBA and who's going to get what money and where they play. Major League Baseball still hitting home runs. And we can't wait for a pigskin. Does pigskin taste good with butter too, Big C? I just want to ask, do you put butter on your bacon, or is that too much grease, Big C?
That's a little bit too much. I love pigskin. Crispy barbecue one, the barbecue flavor is just a little spicy.
Too spicy. Well, Big C, I love it all. Back in the day, there was a man by the name of Drew Boudini Brown, and he was known as Muhammad Ali's right-hand man, and he would always tell Ali, with all you got to use, how can you lose? Rumble, young man, rumble. Big C, what are you looking forward to in the sports universe?
Well, Charlton, the Super Bowl champ New England Patriots reported to training camp today, all the veterans. Are they on a run for consecutive Super Bowl appearances and trying to get number 7 in 2020?
Well, number 7 is good, especially if you're down in Vegas. I like 7 3 times. That's 777, and you can follow it too. Maybe you'll go to 7 every Monday through Friday at 5 and 6 p.m. worldwide when you follow Big C Sports on the Big C Sports Network, on the #1 network in the United States of America. Big C Sports has been voted the #1 sports show in the universe, according to Big C and them good old boys down south. As we always tell you, there's never, ever an excuse for domestic violence. If you know any man or woman going through that garbage, please pick up the phone and call 911, because no man or woman should ever have to go through that garbage on their own. And as we always tell you on every Big C Sports show, we thank you, we appreciate you, and we hope that you have a super fantastic day.